Who's going to break out? Who's going to have a massive season for the Sooners that we're not talking about? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year over at monarchmoney.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Jay, next question is coming from, we got this question from two different people, so we're just going to combine it here on the show. It comes from Chris via YouTube and Xavier via the Discord. He says, what players that nobody is talking about are primed for a breakout season, Jay?
We did a really good job of covering a lot of players here on this show, John. We get pretty detailed. We get into the weeds. Sometimes we kind of lose people because of how far in the weeds we get. But, man, there are a couple of players out there that I think have not gotten enough love. Now, they've been mentioned, but I put it this way. The lowest hanging fruit on this is to talk about the offensive line. But we're probably not going to talk about offensive line players because, you know, a lot of you don't know them, and a lot of you don't really care that much about it. You want to see hear about the players that are going to put out the stats. So I was going to go to offensive line because I've got two of them there that I think would be fantastic, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go first our skills positions, people, and then we can probably come back and do another mailbag segment like this again and actually talk about some of the offensive linemen. So if we're going to talk about who has a chance to have a breakout year, it's probably going to be Zion Kearney for me at wide receiver. We've mentioned him before, but we've talked heavily about all the portal additions, all the new players that are coming in there. Zion has a chance to really bust out and be a big-time player. I have another one, but I think Zion Kearney's probably the one that I think this is his year now. He looks good physically, his body, he's been training like crazy. I see the propaganda going out, so I am definitely hopping on and drinking the Kool-Aid. So I just need him to go out there and show us again how he can ball like he did in that Navy game.
Zion Kearney is one of those guys that I think a lot of people are letting what happened as a true freshman determine their projection for him. And I think you got to be careful with that. If we want a recent example of how a true freshman season isn't always indicative of what a player can be, let's just look at Jaden Gibson. You know, that true freshman year, everybody was like, what are we doing with this kid? Why are we keeping him around? He's just dropping balls like crazy, drop balls in the spring game. Like, what are we doing? And then he goes and he has a great sophomore year, again, in a rotational role, but was looking to be the player that broke out in a big, big way in 2024 before he got hurt. So we have to be careful to not overanalyze what happens in a true freshman season sometimes, because yes, take the good, certainly take the good and allow that to help you, understand where a player's headed, but don't overreact to the bad, because true freshmen are going to make mistakes. It's just going to happen. And everybody's going to amplify those because they're freshmen, but the kid's got talent, man. He's a kid that can do it all, and he can win in so many ways for you on offense, that he's going to have a big time role with Oklahoma. And given that, Javante Gibson and Jaden Gibson are still working their way back from injuries, he's going to have an opportunity to earn some significant snaps through fall camp. So I think Zion Kearney is a great one. If we're looking at offense, I think Taylor Tatum, again, another one of those guys that everybody's kind of down on because of the fumbles. Everybody thought, there were rumors that he was going to be hitting the portal this spring, and he didn't. He stuck around. So to me, it seems like they've got plans for him. They want to figure out a way to get him involved in the offense. And yes, the Jaden Ott piece is significant. He's going to be your RB1. There's no questions about that. You've got Javante Barnes around that is going to have a role if he's healthy. Maybe they redshirt him. I don't know what's going to happen there. And then you have Xavier Robinson, obviously, that had a really monster game against Alabama. But don't sleep on Taylor Tatum, man. The dude is so talented. He's got the ability to be a game breaker. Just got to have better ball security. And I think that he's one of those guys that even if you get him in the game for 5 to 10 touches, he's going to have a chance to do something special with him because he's such a quick player. He's so fast. He can create big plays out of the backfield, both as a runner and a receiver. I think Ben Arbuckle is going to have a role for him in the offense. Somebody on defense, or you got another guy on offense you think is going to break out?
Let's switch sides of the ball. Let's go with a defensive player. We've touched on this guy slightly, but I think it's definitely warranted to really bring his name up again. I think David Stone's about to have his year. As a true freshman, you were hoping you get a lot more out of him, but you had a lot of young players that fit certain roles better at the time. Not saying that they were just completely better than what Stone was, what you wanted Stone to do. Some players were a little bit better at that, were more refined in comparison. But I think David Stone, this is the year after all the drama with the transfer portal stuff. I think he has his head to the point of, I need to do what I need to do and make this happen so I can prove to everybody that I'm as good as I was rated. I mean, I was a 5-star plus. So I expect Stone to have that year that everyone's been looking for out of him. I know he's been training hard. You see the propaganda on him as well. Give me some David Stone stock. I'm going to buy a lot of it. I think this is definitely the year for him.
I'm going to stick with the defensive line and go with Taylor Wine. You've heard spring ball a lot reports, about him. And apparently he's in the mix to start at defensive end. He's competing with Marvin Jones Jr. and PJ Adebawore and Danny Okoye for role. And the kid is uber athletic and he's very long. And that's going to bode well for him in a defensive end competition. So now what does a breakout constitute? I don't know exactly, but what if he comes out and he has 3 sacks for Oklahoma? That's coming out of nowhere. Like that's a guy that nobody's expecting to have much production for you because you're expecting that to come from Marvin Jones Jr., PJ Adebawore, opposite of R. Mason Thomas. So if a guy like Taylor Wine comes in and he gives you 3 sacks, gives you, half a dozen tackles for loss, I think we could consider that a minor breakout and somebody that you could project to maybe be one of your starters in 2026 at defensive end. So again, I'm not expecting him to go out and have 10 sacks. I'm not expecting him to go be an All-American or anything like that, but I think you can project these minor breakouts for a guy like him. I think Jacoby Johnson is another defensive player that we might not be talking enough about. Brent Venables is very high on Jacoby Johnson. Jay Valai is as well. The athleticism is there. It's crazy. The length is there. He's got the speed. Just has to kind of pull it all together and figure out a way to best use that athleticism, that speed, that length to be a difference maker out there at corner. And he's going to be one of those guys that has an opportunity to solidify a role in fall camp, because even though, Eli might be ready and Gentry might be ready, I think they're going to want to kind of keep those guys. They're not going to overexpose them in fall camp so they can keep them as healthy as possible for the season. And so Jacoby might get a lot more first team defensive snaps.
No, I totally get you on that. I think even adding to that in the corner, I think that we're not talking enough about Devon Jordan. I know I've heard really good things about him and Jeremiah Newcomb. So you've got some additional players at corner. They're all young. Remember, these are all redshirt freshmen and redshirt sophomores that we're really talking the most about. They're all super young. I mean, Jacoby's the only one that's up there ranked technically a junior. So this is the year for him to really jump. But I think having Jordan and Newcomb are 2 players that I do think are now at the point where we expect them to show up. They're getting that age. They've got enough experience in practice. They should understand the defense. It's time for them to, show up and show out. So I can agree with you there. That's a really good one in Jacoby.
Yeah, and if Oklahoma gets their quarterback situation figured out, it's going to do wonders for this defense in 2025. Yeah. We got some recruiting news ahead of a not as big as Champion Barbecue recruiting weekend, but it's a big recruiting weekend. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.